Hey everybody, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be remaking the famous Levain Bakery chocolate chip walnut cookies. These are the super gooey giant cookies that you eat a whole one of, even though you probably shouldn't. And there were a lot of comments on my last video from people that had questions about the recipe or they came across issues, and so today I am here to make them for you and hopefully clear up any issues. I mean, who doesn't love cookies? Cookies are great, right? But baking is very precise, and so I'm just here to help you and make sure that you can get the best cookie possible as easily as you can. But before we get started, don't forget to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell if you want to know when I post new videos. I'm going to be posting videos weekly, and I want you to be part of it.
Subscribe to my channel because she's the bestest.
Thank you. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be doing is beating the butter in the mixer. I've got 1 cup of salted butter, or if you want to use unsalted, then you can just add half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to put this in the mixer, and as you can see, I've cut it up into these little cube pieces, not cubes, just like sliced into tablespoons. I'm going to put that in the mixer, and you do not want this butter soft at all. This is very important because the temperature of your butter can affect the spread of your cookies and also how the butter combines with the other ingredients. It doesn't have to be chilled, but you don't want to microwave it, and you want to measure it out last because if it sits out on your countertop for too long, it will also get soft, and we just want straight from the fridge temperature. Oh my gosh, I'm having problems. And we're gonna beat this up until it's nice and creamy. And of course, don't forget to use a spatula to scrape down the sides of your bowl while mixing so that you can make sure all of the ingredients are getting evenly incorporated. So as you can see, the butter is not super light and fluffy, but you just want to beat it until it's smooth like this. All right, then we're going to add our sugars. We have half a cup of granulated sugar and 3/4 cup of packed light brown sugar. Ooh, so satisfying. There we go. And now we're gonna beat this together on a medium speed until it's nice and smooth and you can't see any more butter clumps. After you're done mixing in the sugar, then we're going to add 2 eggs. I don't know why I said it like that. It seems kind of weird. And we're going to beat those in as well. Alright, so now we're all done mixing together the wet ingredients, and now we're going to move on to the dry ingredients. Woohoo! This is where it gets a tiny bit complicated. Never mind, just kidding. Alright, so first off, you are going to need 1 cup of cake flour. But if you don't have cake flour, I'm going to show you a really easy way to make it at home. You're going to take 1 cup of all-purpose flour and then take out 2 tablespoons. So I've got my little tablespoon thingy here. Level it off. And then you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And I'm just gonna go ahead and sift it. We're gonna sift it later, but I'm gonna sift it twice because cornstarch can be clunky. And then I'm gonna stir the cornstarch together with the flour. And then we're gonna add that to our bowl over here with the regular flour, and we're going to sift it again. So then we're going to mix together 1 cup of cake flour, 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm just gonna go ahead and start mixing this while I talk to you guys. But I also saw lots of comments saying that there wasn't enough flour in the dough, or that it was too sticky and it melted down in the oven. And that is because we use cups, and cups are not really the best for baking because they're not super precise, especially for flour, because people can measure their flour wrong and it's very easy. So the original recipe had 1.5 cups of flour, and that's really if you're kind of measuring it the wrong way. But if you're measuring it correctly, you can use 1 3/4 cups of flour, and it should be enough flour so that the dough is not like melting everywhere. When I made this video 2 years ago, I can't believe it was 2 years ago, I did not know that, so I probably packed in way too much flour. Let me show you an example. The best way to measure your flour is to weigh it. I always weigh my flour even if I don't weigh any of the other ingredients. And for this recipe, you'll want to use 220 grams of flour, or if you don't have a scale, you can measure it using a cup. Now this is just a random cup. I'm not going to be using this flour for anything. But let me show you an example of how to not measure it. You take your cup, you scoop it in there, and then you pack all the flour in, get it nice and squished in, and just get as much flour as you possibly can. Just really pack it in. Actually, let me get a scale. This is my 1/4 cup of flour. A 1/4 cup usually weighs about 30 grams. And I'm gonna put this in my scale. This is the packed in cup of flour. It will not come out. And it is 44 grams, so that is way too much. This is how you should measure your flour. You take a spoon and you place it in the cup. And then wait. You gotta take a knife and level it off. And now let's weigh this 1/4 cup. Right. So this one is 32 grams. So that's a big difference. So make sure that you measure your flour correctly if you want your cookies to come out the way you want them. So anyways, that was my flour rant. And now, after you've whisked together your dry ingredients, you're going to add them to the bowl of the mixer. And now we're gonna mix this together on low speed, pulsing it so that we don't over mix it. So you're just gonna turn it on, turn off, on, turn off. All right, gonna scrape down my bowl again. Pulsing also kind of helps the flour not fly all over your face. Alrighty, so now you're going to be adding 2 cups of unchopped walnuts and 2 cups of chocolate chips. Okay, I have a question. Why do you cook bacon and bake cookies? These are life's most important questions. And now we're gonna pulse in the chocolate chips and the walnuts. So once you're done mixing that together, we're gonna move the mixer over here, get it out of the way. So now what we're gonna do is, well, I'm gonna put on some gloves, but you do not have to. I'm gonna use my hands to make sure that all of the chocolate chips are evenly mixed in. This actually works a lot better than trying to do it with a spatula. I'm not sure why. And then we're going to weigh out each of the cookie dough balls. So I got my scale here, and I'm just gonna place a piece of plastic wrap on top of it, just so that I don't get my scale dirty. And each of these cookies is going to be 6 ounces, but if you don't have a scale, it's about 3/4 cup of dough. Here's the first one. All right, I'm done weighing out all of my cookies. You should get about 8 cookies. And now I'm going to cover these with plastic wrap and stick them in the fridge to chill for 1 hour. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so my cookie dough has been chilling, and now it is time to bake them. And I'm gonna try a few different ways to bake them because Another thing that people said they had issues with was the bottom getting too dark before they were done baking. So I'm gonna show you a few different ways you can do this. The first way is you get a cookie sheet and you use parchment paper on it. The parchment paper is super important because it helps them not brown on the bottom as much. So I'm gonna take my cookie dough and put it on there. You could also try this with a silicone baking mat, but I'm not totally sure if it works as well. And now I'm going to bake this. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees, and I'm gonna bake this cookie for 10 to 12 minutes. And the second way that I'm going to do is using our toaster oven, which has a convection setting on it. So I'm gonna see how big of a difference the convection makes. So same temperature, and I'm gonna do these for like 8 to 10 minutes. But the amount of time that you bake your cookies for really just depends on your oven. When I've used the convection oven, it usually works better and it's more accurate. But for me personally, my oven is a little bit wonky, so it usually bakes things like too fast. So you just kind of gotta get to know your oven. I always say start with less time because you can always add more. You don't want things to be like super overbaked or burnt. Oh, and then the third way that I'm gonna try this, somebody left a comment on the video and they said that you can bake them with an inverted pan and it should help the cookies not brown as much. So I'm gonna test this out for you guys. So I have this cookie sheet here and I'm basically just gonna turn it over so that it's upside down and I'm gonna put it in the oven like this. And then I'm gonna put the other cookie sheet that has the cookie on it on top of it. And this is how it's gonna go into the oven. But I'm gonna try it those 3 ways and I will let you know how it goes. And also, when you're baking them, make sure that you do not flatten them out at all. And if you have to bake multiple batches of the cookie, make sure that your cookie sheet is also completely cooled down before you put cookie dough on it. Because it can like start to melt it and then it's just, you don't want your cookie sheet to be hot when you're putting it in the oven. All right, here are all of the cookies straight out of the oven. But before I try them and compare them, we are going to let them cool for 20 minutes on the pan. And this is so that they can finish cooking on the inside. Here they are. Whoa, don't they look so good? So just looking at the outside, I think they're all baked nicely, but this one, the one that I just did on a normal pan with parchment, looks like it didn't bake as evenly as the other ones. You can see this part is dark and then this part is not. This is the one that I put in the convection oven and it seemed to bake faster than these. I only put it in for 9 minutes and this one I think was 11 and this one 12. But it got pretty dark. So now let's open them up. Convection oven first. Okay, that looks good. This is fun. It's like a little science experiment I'm doing. The ones that I baked on a normal pan with parchment paper. And the one I baked on an inverted pan. They all look pretty similar, don't they? But I think I like the coloring of this one the best. Ooh, okay. So first, the inverted pan. Try it. That one is good. It's very gooey and the outside is crispy. Now here is the normal pan. I think with this one, it cooked a bigger piece of the edge. And the other one is just like the outside layer. And now for the convection oven ones, honestly, I don't think the convection oven did as well as the other ones. It's so dark on the outside and yet it's so gooey on the inside. Yeah, it's like falling apart. This one's not even staying together right. So maybe you need to bake it more. Who knows? It's still good, but it's just not quite right. So overall, I think the best way to go is to bake your cookies on an inverted pan with parchment. So thank you to whoever commented that and told me to try that, because that worked. This one is the most evenly baked with even browning across the top, but either way, they're super delicious. So there you have it. There's everything you need to know about making the Levain Bakery chocolate chip walnut cookies. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you know every time I post a new video. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh, also, I just realized I'm using a Christmas plate right now. I don't know if you can tell. It's way too early for Christmas right now, but I needed a rectangular plate and this was the only one I could find, so Merry Christmas, I guess.